My name is Suzanne Fensky, and I will be your facilitator for today's webinar event, What's Next? Pivoting from High School into Your Future. And this is a webinar series. It's all about money management. So before we get started, I have a poll question to ask of all of you, and that is, are you currently working while you're in high school? So you might be wondering, how come we're presenting this webinar series to you? We're presenting it because you will either be seniors next year or you are seniors now and are so close to graduation and entering a new phase in your life beyond high school. When I was a high school back in the day, I knew almost nothing about money other than how to save a little bit of it. And over the years, I have saved some money, but I could have done a better job of it. And I wish I had learned about the topics we are going to be exploring over the next 4 weeks with you: budgeting, banking, borrowing, and financing your future. These are the 4 puzzle pieces of managing your money that work together to help you be successful with this precious commodity, your hard-earned dollars. And we see that many of you are currently working. Ultimately, each of you will decide whether these topics matter to you in your own life now and in the future. Hopefully, we do a good job of it and get all of you interested in managing your money, as it's something that can be learned and can make a huge impact in your life. And remember this: ask questions, lots of questions now, and continue to ask questions in the future to learn how to manage your money. In terms of my background, I am a financial educator at Community Housing Network, where we help people with housing needs, and I'm a graduate of the University of Michigan with a bachelor's degree in engineering. And before we get started, we would like to learn a little bit more about all of you. So we have some polling questions to ask. And the first one is, currently, what year are you in at Pontiac High School? Juniors or seniors? And thank you. And then our next question is this: looking into the future, what is your dream job or career choice? And thank you for responding to that poll question. So before we dive into today's webinar, we are going to take a tiny little break and watch a short 3-minute video that I recently found on YouTube. So we'll watch it together, and it is called The Story of Your Life. And this video is about making choices. And by the end of the 4th webinar, it will be clear as to why we have shared this video with you now. So let me find my way to the YouTube video here.
One day a son goes to his father and says, "Father, what is the value of my life?" And the father gives him a stone and says, "Son, if you want to know the value of your life, take this stone and go to the market. And if anyone asks the price, don't say a word and raise up 2 fingers." So the boy does as his father says and goes to the market. He wanders around, And suddenly an old woman approaches him and says, "How much is this stone?" And the boy doesn't say a word, just raises up 2 fingers. And the woman says, $2? I'll take it. The son is surprised and runs back to his father. He says, "Father, there was an old woman at the market. She wanted to give me $2 for the stone." And the father says, "Son, the next place I want you to go is to the museum. And if anyone asks the price, don't say a word and raise up 2 fingers." So the son takes the stone and goes to the museum. After about 20 minutes, there is a middle-aged man in a suit who approaches the boy. He says, "Sir, how much is this stone?" The boy doesn't say a word and raises up 2 fingers. And the man says, $200? I'll take it. The boy is surprised and runs home to his father. Father, a man in the museum wanted to buy the stone for $200. Okay, son. The last place I want you to take the stone is a precious stone store. Walk inside with the stone, and if anyone asks the price, don't say a word, just raise up 2 fingers. So the son runs off into the precious stone store. After finding it, he walks inside and there is an old man at the counter. And as the old man sees the stone, he jumps up and screams, "Oh my God, you have the stone I've been looking for my whole life. What do you want for it? How much is it?" The boy doesn't say a word and raises up 2 fingers. And the old man says, $200,000? I'll take it. The boy can't believe it. He jumps up and runs to his father. He says, Father, the old man in the precious stone store wanted to give me $200,000 for the stone." You see, son? Do you understand now the value of your life? Life is all about where you place yourself. You can decide if you want to be a $2 stone or a $200,000 stone. There are some people who love you and for whom you're everything. And some people will just use you as a commodity, and for them, you will be worth nothing. So it is upon you, my son, to decide the value of your life.
So today's speaker is Mr. Andrew White from Sterling Bank and Trust. And Mr. White graduated from law school at Michigan State University. He is a lead corporate compliance officer at Sterling Bank. So his job is to make sure the bank is following all federal and state banking laws and their business practices at Sterling. And we thank and appreciate your teacher, Ms. Culler, and students for inviting us into your classroom today. And now Mr. White is going to help us explore the importance of our first essential financial topic, budgeting, which sets the stage for how to spend and save some of your hard-earned money.
Thank you, Suzanne. Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew White, and as Suzanne said, I'm a Senior Vice President, Chief Compliance Officer, and Associate General Counsel at Sterling Bank and Trust. I'm here today to give you some tools for building a basic budget. We are going to discuss how you leverage your money to balance your needs and your wants. So, what is our goal for today? Our goal is to give you the basic tools to avoid being like this guy and asking yourself, where did all my money go? We want to avoid you thinking, why did I spend it all? And worst of all, how am I going to pay for things I need now that my money is gone? I've been in this situation myself. When I was in college, I received my first student loan disbursement at the beginning of the semester. The money was supposed to last me for 5 months, and then I was to receive the next disbursement halfway through the year. I didn't think about that at the beginning of the semester when I first received the money. At the end of the semester, with about 6 weeks to go, I ran out of money. I wasn't able to pay rent, utilities, or buy food. I was nervous and embarrassed. Luckily, I had a safety net in my parents. But I learned the lesson then that I needed to budget my money. So, we ask, what is a budget? Well, what do you think it is? Do you think a budget is simply a spending limitation? Is it a plan for your money? Or do you just think it's a car rental company? Well, a budget is a plan for your money. Plan is the key word here. I'm sure you've heard it before. Preparation is the key to success. When you plan, you're preparing yourself for financial success. A budget compares the money you expect to bring in, which we'll talk of as expected monthly income, and the money you expect to go out, your planned monthly expenses. Simply put, this is cash flow. During this presentation, we'll use a couple phrases like income and expenses a lot in our discussion. For our purposes, income is the money you bring in. It's the money you earn, whether that's from a job or whether you are borrowing it or it's gifted to you. And expenses is the money that you spend. It's the money that you use to buy things like goods or services. Now, this plan can be really simple. Here is an example budget sheet. This is the same sheet that you will receive as a handout that correlates with this budgeting presentation. Additionally, I want to leave you guys with a thought to think about while we go through this presentation. And that is that budgeting is a lot like a bucket of rocks. But before I give it away, I want you to know that we'll come back to this at the end and keep it in mind. It will make sense once we get to the back part of our presentation. So you might be asking yourself, why should I make and follow a budget? Well, it helps you do three important things with your money. First, it helps you achieve your savings goals. You need to understand your total financial circumstances to be able to set money aside for future purposes or prepare for an unexpected expense. Some of you may have heard of this called as a rainy day fund. Second, it will help you navigate your existing debt. And debt is where you borrow money and you have to pay it back. So if you have to take a loan or buy things with credit cards, you have to pay that money back. Having a budget will help you make your payments and stay on a schedule to repay the money. Third, it will help you avoid unnecessary debt. It is always better to be in a position to pay for purchases or unexpected costs with cash versus a credit card or a loan where the interest required will actually make your purchase cost more over time. So let's take a look at a potential purchase that I want to make. I want to look at buying this new PS5 that you see pictured here. It's Saturday morning. I got my paycheck yesterday for $395. I already have saved up $552. So in my account, I have $947. Well, before I make a purchase, I should look at how much it's going to cost me. So I start looking at what it's going to cost. The cost of the console is almost $500. An extra controller, I know I'm going to need because I'm going to be playing with my friends. So that's another $60. I like to go online and play a lot of video games. So that's going to be another $100 for a headset. So I can make sure that I can talk while I'm playing online. I'm going to need a controller charger. So that's another $30. And naturally, I need a game. So another $70. So the cost of my PS5 roughly is $760. But here's your first lesson. The cost of goods is not always limited to what's on the sticker. We got to think about other things like sales tax. So in Michigan, I calculated 6% sales tax, which comes out to $46. So my real cost of buying this PS5 is $806. So what do you think? Do I buy it? Well, you might be thinking to yourself, yeah, I'm going to buy it. I even have money left over to get some pizza, and I'm going to have a pretty sweet Saturday. But you may be thinking, No, I want to see if there's ways that I can spend less on the PS5 than the $806. The other thing you may be thinking is, no, I want to make sure I have enough money to finish this month out before buying anything extra. But right now, really, you want to have the feeling that you don't have enough information to decide what to do. So let's look at some more things and see if we have enough information to make this decision here at the end of the presentation. So the first thing we're going to look at when we're talking about creating a budget is income. That is, where does my money come from? Money in. Well, there's a couple sources where you can get money. First, there's your job, and that's the money you take home or money after taxes. You could get income from your parents, or other family members, where they may contribute by providing you some cash to get through the month. And you might have some secondary education or training resources like student loans or other financial aid to help pay your way. Now, the easiest way to probably figure out your income is to take a look at a monthly bank statement. Now, if you have a bank account, a checking account, or a savings account, and I recommend that you each get a checking account at least, and there will be some additional discussion about checking accounts and their different functions in a later presentation. You can review that monthly statement, and you're just going to add up the amounts deposited into your bank account. A lot of times that will be reflected as a credit. But you basically want to see what money is adding to the balance of your bank account. Well, if you don't have a bank account, there's other ways to figure out how much income you have. You can look at your pay stubs. If you're getting financial aid, there'll be a disbursement or a refund check. And gifts or transfers from your parents, you'll have to keep track of on a list. And when you put this all together, you'll figure out how much income or money you have coming in. Let's walk through a little scenario to go along with my decision of whether or not I'm going to buy a PS5. So for our scenario, we're going to assume that I'm a student at Oakland Community College in its work study program. As part of that program, the maximum hourly rate I can earn is $11.25. The maximum I can work each week is 20 hours. So on top of school and studying, I'm hustling pretty hard to make those 20 hours per week. My paycheck is paid twice per month, and I figure out that my paycheck is $395 after taxes are taken out, which leaves me with a monthly pay of $790 each month. Here's a quick note. Always check your paycheck stub to make sure you are paid what you earned. There are tools available on the internet, like this ADP.com paycheck calculator that you see the web address for, that can help you estimate what you'll earn after taxes when you're applying for a job. But also importantly, make sure that what's being withheld from your check to pay for taxes is appropriate. This is a very important step when you're determining what income you have, so that you understand the money that's coming in and whether it's appropriate. The next source of income I have in this scenario is that I'm getting financial aid to cover some of my living expenses. I get $2,200 for living expenses every semester. This is to last me 4 months. So I want to take this amount, again, learning from my own individual experience, and divide it out monthly. So I take my $2,200 divided by 4, and I've got $550 of income per month from my student financial aid. This estimate is actually based on the living expenses expected in Oakland County using the net price calculator on collegeavstudentloans.com. When you're looking at financial aid, and we have another presentation later we'll touch on this, it's important that you use the resources available like collegeavstudentloans.com to get an idea of not only how much you can borrow, but what you can factor into how much you should borrow, like living expenses. Well, I'm not done with my income yet. My grandma, well, I'm her favorite grandson, and so she gives me another $50 a month to spend as I wish. So in total, I add these up and figure out that my income is $1,390 per month. So what do we do next? We need to figure out how much we spend. So remember that question? Where did all my money go? Well, figuring out what you spend is the first step to avoiding being in this situation. A way to think about this is cash flow. You have money flowing into your life, which is the spigot at the top of the chart, and the money flowing out of your life, which is the spigot at the bottom. This is an important concept not only for your personal lives, but applies in business every single day. Money in and then money out. Your goal here is you want to make sure the flow to be greater coming in than the flow going out. So, expenses. Where is my money going? And how do I determine what money is going out? It's actually pretty simple. The best way to understand what you are spending is to create a list of what you buy each month. So, what am I going to do to make the list? Well, if you're making cash transactions, you want to ask for a receipt each time and keep track of that, or write down what you bought and how much you spent. If you're using a credit card or debit card transactions, you should look at your monthly statements. You should get these in the mail or online, and you're going to want to look at all your debits or the transactions where you're spending money. Similarly, you want to review your bank account statements. Now, if you have a debit card, those transactions are going to be reflected on your bank statements. But other things like online automatic payments or bill payments or other things that you set up without using your credit card, your debit card, or cash are going to be reflected in your bank statement because there's many ways that you can pay for things. So I thought it would be important to recognize that everyone's list will be different. But here are some examples you might see as a high school student. You might have some utilities expenses like phone and internet. You might have some food expenses. You might buy some of your own groceries or eat out. Entertainment. You might be spending money on a streaming subscription or going to the movies. Personal care. You might be responsible for your own hair or going to get your nails done. Apparel. You might be responsible for your own clothes or your shoes. Savings. You might already be setting up an emergency fund or planning for a big purchase like a PS5. Saving for prom. Here's an example of a big purchase. You might be saving for clothes, shoes, hair, going out to dinner, or corsage. And you might be responsible for helping out at home and contributing to your overall family's budget. But for our scenario, as I stated, I'm in the Oakland Community College Work-Study Program. So to demonstrate how things can change, let's look at a list of what might be part of a post-high school individual's budget. Now, as you can see, this list has gotten bigger, and it reflects that you have more responsibility now. The first thing you'll notice is housing. You're going to have to probably pay for rent when you leave high school if you leave your parents' home. You might have credit card debt or other kind of debts where you're going to have to make some monthly payments. Your utilities are going to increase if you're renting a place. Your rent may include utilities, but you may also be responsible for paying for electric, heating, water, garbage, other things on your own. Your food may increase. You're certainly going to be buying more groceries when you're buying for yourself and not able to rely on what you're currently getting at home. You may have increased transportation costs. Educational expenses that aren't covered by financial aid may be your responsibility. Again, you'll have entertainment, personal care, but you may have increased medical costs, whether that's getting insurance on your own, being responsible for your own doctor's visits, or purchasing your own medicine. And again, we have savings. We want to make sure we keep this in mind, even though in my scenario, we're not really seeing any savings. So let's go through the example of my expenses in order to calculate whether I should be able to buy the PS5. The first thing I want to do is give you a little tip, and that's you want to use round numbers when listing out your expenses. That's because it makes it easier to do the math, little cheat sheet. But also, you want to round up. So if you see an expense that is $45.86, you want to round up to 46. Again, not only does it make the math easier, but it will also give you a little cushion in your budget. You'll have a couple extra bucks that really goes unseen, but may add up and end up being savings in the future. So, as I said, we're going to start paying for housing. In this circumstance, we see that rent is $700. Again, this is a real figure that we pulled offline for a one-bedroom apartment around Oakland Community College. Food. We're spending $300 on groceries and we're dining out for $170. This is an important one to pay attention to because as you see, I'm categorizing within each item what the total makeup is made from. So for food, we've got two different categories. This will be important in analyzing our expenses as we go forward. Utilities, $175. Again, you see heat, electricity, and internet are in here. Water, we're lucky in our scenario we don't have to pay for. And we have a cell phone. Transportation. This is made up of three different categories. We've got our car payment, gas, and insurance. Personal care, we're spending about $25 a month getting our hair cut. I had to get medical insurance, so that's costing $35 a month. And entertainment, I'm spending about $50 a month. So you see the breakdown here of my online subscriptions, as well as once a month I like to go to the movies, so there's $25. So now we're going to tally up my total expenses. Living alone, my total expenses are $1,730 a month. My monthly income is $1,390. Well, we've got a problem. In this scenario, I'm not bringing in enough money to cover the money that's going out that I'm spending. I have what's known as a shortage of $340. Well, I'm going to quickly get myself in trouble and go into debt if I don't analyze my spending, which takes me to this slide. We have to analyze our cash flow. We've got too much going out and not enough coming in. So now what? How do we analyze our income and our spending? Well, we need to look at our spending compared to our income and determine if we can afford what we're doing. Well, as I said, we've got bad news. We have a shortage of $340 a month. What can we do? Well, we can look at our spending to see if we can somehow decrease or eliminate some of our expenses. Do you have any ideas? We could simply try to get a second job and increase our income. We could move in with a roommate to cut expenses, or we could simply eliminate expenses. Well, in our scenario, we're going to find a roommate. It's a good strategy because we're going to decrease rent, utilities, probably costs of foods, and probably some of our entertainment expenses. Well, by splitting our rent, utilities, some of our food and entertainment expenses, in our scenario, we can save $612 a month by living with a roommate. Dining out. Now remember, we categorized in our list some subcategories, and we discovered we're spending a lot on dining out. So you're going to want to dive even deeper in there. You're going to want to see where you're spending the money. Well, in my scenario, I've got a lot of night classes, so 3 times a week, I've been spending $7 to eat dinner at McDonald's. Well, that equals $84 a month. It adds up quick. Also, I've got a Friday pizza night where I always get Jets, and that's cost me $21.50. That's another $86 a month. Well, I'm just going to eliminate those. So I'm going to save $170 a month by packing a lunch and either making my own pizza at home or buying a frozen pizza. The one thing I want to remind you as we go through this, and you'll hear a constant theme, is our budget is not including saving for emergencies, big purchases, or retirement savings. You want to keep it in mind whether there's room for these in a revised budget. And as you have this dynamic situation and as life changes, you want to keep that in the back of your mind. We may not have room for these now, but we want to make sure we make room for them in the future. So, we're going to walk through how these changes impacted our budget. Housing, cut in half, $350 instead of $700. Food, sharing groceries, we were able to cut that in half to $150, and dining out was totally eliminated. So we're only spending $150 on food. Utilities, we were able to cut down to $105. There's some things like your cell phone that you're not necessarily going to be able to split and lower your expenses with a roommate. However, you may be able to examine whether you can get on your family plan or potentially work on a group plan with some other friends and individuals, which may include your roommate. Here, we're not doing that. Transportation remains the same. Personal care, not much room to cut there. And our medical insurance premium is what it is right now. But the other place we decided to make up some ground is we're not going to go to the movies. We're going to cut out that $25. So our entertainment budget went from $50 to $25. So let's tally up our total expenses. Now, if you recall, when we were living alone, our monthly expenses were $1,730 a month. Just by getting a roommate and cutting our expenses significantly related to housing, we were able to get our expenses down to $1,135 a month. Then we eliminated dining out. So now our total expenses each month is $965. Remember, our monthly income was $1,390. So when we were living alone, we had that dreaded shortage of $340. We were going to be in trouble. Again, just by having a roommate, we created a surplus. A surplus is where you're bringing in more money than what's going out of $255. In total, with eliminating dining out, we have a surplus of $425. So, going back to my PS5 scenario, I've got to decide whether that $395 is something I can go without this month and buy that PS5 today. Well, we've got an overage of $425 in our budget, but we have to consider some things. Can we get to the end of the month without that money? Should we continue saving for a couple months and just buy it cash? If we already have the practice of savings and working towards being responsible, maybe we can go ahead and buy it today. But maybe we need to cut some additional spending and go without something else for a while to feel more comfortable buying the PS5. We may want to try to find a second job to find more income. There's really no wrong answer here. But either way you go, you need to put a plan together, because that way you ensure you can afford both what you want and what you need, so you stay on the path of financial success. So remember, I said earlier that a budget is like a bucket of rocks. A bucket of rocks helps us visualize our monthly income together with our monthly expenses and to be aware of how the two compare. Are we heading into a budget shortage or a budget surplus as each month transpires? So when you're thinking about this, the bucket is your monthly income. That is how much you bring in. The rocks are your monthly expenses. So you probably see where this is already going. The rocks fill up your bucket, and you have the pictures up top which reflect what you can have happen. If you have too many expenses and too many rocks, Well, you're not going to get all your rocks into your bucket. You're really looking for the picture in the middle where you have a balance of rocks and bucket. There's no rocks outside the bucket. And as life goes on, hopefully you're in a position to create a surplus where you'll have room for more rocks or expenses in your bucket. What you want to think about as you're filling your bucket and creating your budget is you want to make sure that the rocks that are getting into your bucket are the most necessary ones, the most important expenses to get into your bucket. Typically, those are your biggest rocks. Housing is a mandatory expense, right? It's one that's going to probably be your biggest expense. It was in our scenario, rent was our most expensive monthly budget item. Now, smaller rocks might also include necessary expenses. We had smaller rocks like groceries. We had our medical premium for insurance. Those will go around your bigger rocks. And then you have even smaller rocks or pebbles that are likely your non-essentials. That was like our Hulu subscription. You put those in last and they fill the gaps. And if those spill out and you can't afford them, those are the ones that you leave out of your budget for another month. Now, you always have the option of trying to get a bigger bucket, thus a bigger monthly income. Now, we're all starting out life, especially out of high school, with small buckets, but it should always be your goal to work as hard as you can. And we're going to talk about ways to do that as we have additional presentations so that you, again, have a plan. Preparation is key to success. When you plan to prepare for setting yourself up for financial success, avoiding monthly shortages and achieving monthly surpluses or balanced budgets is a lot like this bucket and rocks, and it's very achievable by you. So I want to leave you with a couple thoughts. Here is a quote from Atunba Akin-Alabi. He's a Nigerian entrepreneur. He's a politician, philanthropist, and author. And he says, live within your means, but continually work on expanding your means. Budgeting is an essential tool for this. By managing your money, it helps you to be successful today and set yourself up for success tomorrow. Now, there's additional steps you can take through preparation, like doing some sort of post-high school education or training program, such like a trade school. We will hear more about that from Devontae Montgomery in the financial education presentation from Devontae, who works at MSU Federal Credit Union. Now, finally, here on my last slide, we're going to leave you with some more resources. Again, I referenced the sample budget that was in a slide, and you should have a handout with that as well. Additionally, I provided another income paycheck calculator at smartasset.com. The last three are really resources where you can take the time to invest in yourself by learning about the various different things that live in the financial world and managing your money. We'll cover the basics here over these next few presentations, but there are things like car loans, home loans, different types of investments that you can use and leverage to meet your goals and needs in life. But remember about these free resources: FDIC Money Smart Resources, the National Endowment for Financial Education, and Duke University Personal Financial Education. These are free resources, and you're going to want to educate yourself before you make any financial decision. And that is the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Andrew, for exploring this important topic with us, budgeting, as it is an important skill, and it's one that everyone can learn, and it helps us live within our means, specifically all of our hard-earned money that we make each month. And you just did a wonderful job of that, so thank you. And in closing, just to let everyone know that we did pre-record this webinar, which you can view at any time during the month of May. And your teacher will have information to help you do this. Also, we have provided a copy of a booklet that you can use and keep called Your Money, Your Goals. And the title is a little bit funny. It's called Behind on Your Bills, and it's a question, but it's a really wonderful book, and it's all about budgeting and goal setting. And so each of you will be getting a copy of that in your classroom. And so just you have that to look forward to and that you can refer to in the future. And so again, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Ms. Kohler, and thank you, students, for attending today's webinar. And we look forward to seeing everyone at our next webinar on banking. So thank you.